Yo, what is good, everybody? It is your boy, Golden Falls, Golden What Ifs, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back. This is part one, yes, part one of two of What If Sung Jin Woo had God Key. And I just want to say, I was planning on making basically one video, one season, but I decided, hey, I don't really want to do that. I want to make it two parts, and then you guys can get the full kind of compilation of season one. It will also help me with some time management things. Now, in the future, you might get a couple what ifs where it's just one season, one video, especially with solo leveling. Don't know how long season 2 is going to be. So maybe season 2 will have like a two-parter, and maybe the whole thing together will be like 3 parts. I'm not 100% sure yet. I have to iron out the details there. So if you guys still want to enjoy some solo leveling content, please show some love, leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. Also, check the links in the description. Have a Discord, so if you want to go check that out, you can also do that. But today we will be going into What If Sung Jin Woo had God Key, and as always, I mean, I'm pretty sure most of you guys can know and understand, that is gonna be pretty OP. But I have my own little spin on things that I want to approach things with, so I wanna just get right into it. So let's get it. Sung Jin Woo is considered to be the weakest hunter in the world. Yes, the weakest hunter. But here's the thing. This version of Sung Jin Woo is a little bit different than you could possibly imagine. It seems that he was born with something deep down inside himself that many others, well, not only lack, but they have no clue what it truly is. It seems like Sung Jin Woo has a power that isn't recognizable to the normal naked eye, or even to machines that would basically tell them if they're strong or not. This world started changing a long time ago when portals began to open and creatures and monsters began to invade their normal world and their normal kind of country. Now, throughout this time though, it seems as if quickly people began to pick up jobs as hunters that would go into these so-called dungeon gates and handle scenarios and creatures so that they can hold these monsters at bay and they wouldn't hurt anybody in the normal state of the world. Now, Sung Jin Woo, as he grew up and as he got older, he had a lot of potential. A lot of people thought he was going to be pretty damn strong, and it seemed as if he was going to be strong. He would always be able to hold hold a candle to a lot of people in terms of fighting, and seemed like he was pretty strong. Like he was kind of superhuman in a way, just like above the normal human. And when he got his his evaluation and that he was an E-ranked hunter, everybody was shocked. But everybody's minds about Sung Jin Woo would change and flip on its head because they thought he had potential, at least bare minimum a B rank. But now that he's an E rank, they all think that he's weak, that there's no way that he's going to be able to, do anything. And when he would go on these missions and go on these dungeon gate quests types of things, everybody would look down on him. But very few people wouldn't. Very few people actually enjoyed being around Sung Jin Woo, and the more specifically would be a girl by the name of Lee Jo-hee. Now, her and Sung Jin Woo are pretty damn good friends, and Sung Jin Woo would continue to do these dungeon gates. But even she would be a little bit nervous about what he can do and what he can possibly get hurt after, right? She doesn't want him to get hurt, especially with bosses and creatures and all the like. But when he would go into this dungeon that they decided to work with, while everyone's laughing and saying things about him, whatever, he would handle his own, as he would defeat a couple goblins on his own and stuff like that. And his punch would have some good amount of power behind it. And it seems like he has this dormant power that nobody understands, but everybody looks at it kind of like, oh yeah, it's a goblin, of course he can defeat it, right? Like, of course, it's just a goblin. Any normal human being could do that. That's the kind of mindset that a lot of these people actually are having. They're thinking, oh yeah, that's just normal, he could do that. And as they defeat the boss and basically defeat this dungeon gate, it seems as if this dungeon is actually not over. After the boss is defeated, the gate does not collapse, and instead actually reveals a second connected dungeon. Now, initially the party is debating if they want to go further, but Sung Jin Woo doesn't hesitate. He wants to go further. He wants to continue to progress because he needs to make money. He needs to somehow get enough money and somehow find a way to save his mother. And that's the main thing that's going through Sung Jin Woo's mind, is that he has to somehow save his mother's life, because his mother is basically in an eternal coma, or a sickness that for the most part forces her to basically not be able to awaken, and she's like eternally sick. And Sung Jin Woo is trying to find every single possible way he can actually help his own mother, trying to get money, trying to get something, trying to do anything, but nothing seems to work, right? But as they enter this second dungeon, this double dungeon, it seems that they are faced with something they couldn't even possibly imagine. This dungeon is something of legend, because this right here, well, is very terrifying. It seems like there's a giant statue and many statues to follow, and it seems like there are specific rules that basically you have to go by to even survive these statues. The first one is to revere God. Second is to praise God. And the final one is to prove your faith to God. Now, everything would seem kind of terrifying in here, but Sung Jin Woo himself, he actually wouldn't be that scared. Something connecting him in a way to these things makes him not that afraid. He's not 100% sure why or how or what's really going on, but he's not really that afraid. It's as if the power that is within him is somehow connected to these creatures or these gods, but not exactly the same, not exactly like these gods specifically. So he begins to kind of try to help people go through all these things, like, you know, these rules, and several hunters are actually killed. But Sung Jin Woo would, of course, eventually get everybody to kind of wake up to what they have to do, and they decipher the instructions on how to survive. And luckily enough, they're able to do most of the things that are needed in terms of revering God, praising God, but proving your faith to God, or proving your faith, was going to be and is the hardest thing, because it seems as if when they're doing this last part, everybody starts freaking out and starts running out the doorway that has finally opened. And every single person that runs through it, well, the door closes just a little bit more, in which, of course, Sung Jin Woo is trying to get them to stay. That as long as they keep their eyes on these people, that they'll be fine. They won't be able to move anymore. They have to just keep their eyes on him. But nobody's listening. Nobody is doing as he says. They all look at him like he's useless and that he's just some E-ranker that doesn't know what he's talking about. This eventually leads him to making a choice that would send Chi-yul and Jo-hee out of the door. He would tell them that he would stay here, and yes, he knows that it's imminent death, but just to keep her safe, and that's what matters right now. They would race out the doors, the last two excluding Sung Jin Woo, and Sung Jin Woo would watch as these creatures or these kind of stone statues would approach him and basically are about to absolutely obliterate him. And as they're striking down, Sung Jin Woo can feel the pain, but he still tries to fight back, and he can feel the strength surging within him, but soon it'll be gone, because he would be gone. He would be basically taken out entirely, but he won't actually be dead. As he does somewhat die, he receives a message that has completed a hidden quest, and that he can become a player if he accepts. And of course, that's what he does, and he would awaken 3 days later after a pretty extensive coma. And initially he thinks, well, that he just dreamed it. But of course, this was not a dream, because the investigators from the Hunters Association begin to tell him exactly what happened, and that Jo-hee and Chi-yul, they all reported the same thing. And initially, they would have not believed them, But since everybody had the same exact story, they had to believe him, and that there was no way that they could be making those things up. And this is when Sung Jin Woo kind of learns that he could have possibly had a second awakening, but as they look, there's nothing. Well, that's because the power that he has isn't what they think it is. And eventually, Sung Jin Woo would actually discover a message, one that is basically declared to him as a daily quest, right? Like, he has these daily goals to hit and so on, but it seems as if his powers are growing, that his own power is different, right? He was thinking that initially that this approach would basically have a lot to do with death, and would have a lot to do with, well, whatever gods that were there or present the day he died in that dungeon. But it seems different. Yes, he has the daily quest. He has his 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, 10-kilometer run, all that stuff, the normal stuff he would have. But this is a little different now. He feels different. And that's because the power that was laid dormant within him was God Ki, and now it has truly resurfaced and is now being filtered through what they know as the system. It seems like the system has awakened his God Ki and has pushed it even further, and has put him in a realm that he didn't even know was possible. So off rip, yes, Sung Jin Woo is awakened and honestly isn't super tired and stuff like that. So he's able to kind of regroup with himself and start his training. But as he begins training, doing his push-ups and sit-ups, he would think, well, he probably doesn't need to do all this right now, so he'll take a little break in between things and blah blah blah. But as he does this, it's not the best idea in the world, because after he basically decides to skip the first day, he nearly is injured because he's thrown into a penalty quest. And this penalty quest has this creatures and creatures kind of chase after him. He's warped to a desert with a giant centipede, and he realizes that the centipede itself has a name, but also has a color depending on how easy it is to defeat. And when he looks, well, it seems as if this creature has a kind of difficulty of easy or green. And he begins to fight it, and he seems to be hitting way harder. And he seems to be moving way faster. And even has the ability to fly. He doesn't understand it, but as he defeats the centipede and then is done with the penalty room, he begins looking deeper into what he has, deeper into kind of what he is able to use and utilize. And he looks and he sees that he actually has abilities listed off. It seems like one of them, though, is known as God Ki, but also the rest has flight, has enhanced strength, speed, and stuff like that. But he also has a full-on stat system, and also another thing that actually surprises him, which is a transformation list. Now, this is completely bordered off and locked entirely, but it is something that basically perks his interest. Yes, his flight and all this other skills are amazing, but what is a transformation? Like, what do they mean by that? Will he turn into like a centipede? Is that what he's gonna do? Turn into a creature? He doesn't really want to do that, so maybe he should avoid doing that, at least for the moment. But with that said, he begins to actually do his daily quests, and he would receive stat bonuses, loot boxes, which results in him kind of receiving many useless but also one useful thing, which would be an instant dungeon key. And this would interest him because, well, this probably would be good practice to see how he levels up, the skills he can upgrade and stuff like that. So he decides to enter this dungeon key. And as he enters it, well, he begins to actually be confronted by creatures that are a little bit different. These creatures are kind of resemble something that he doesn't really understand. Now, for starters, it starts with basically a simple like goblin-like creature, but when he would get to this other creatures, it would actually be like this odd looking bobcat like creature. He's not 100% sure what it is, and he's not 100% sure like how it even kind of got here, because he's never seen a creature like this before, at least not while he's been on his own, you know, like dungeons and stuff like that. And yes, don't get me wrong, he's not super involved in like every single dungeon, but it's also something he's never seen before. But then when he would kind of fend them off and defeat them, it would be very easy, by the way. He would kill these bobcat creatures, gain a bunch of levels, you know, and stuff like that. And he would get a bunch of stuff and see that he has the ability to basically buy stuff from a shop and stuff along those lines. But he can't really buy anything right now. But as he has a couple kind of stat points in a different category left over. Actually, these stat points are made for his flights, are made for his transformations, which he can't really do just yet, but are also made for his god ki blasts, and other things like that. He upgrades his flight 1, also his ki blast and his god ki, and it seems as if not only does this make him more powerful, but also gives him the ability to use ki blast and flight to a more optimum degree. And when he takes on his final boss of this dungeon, he actually takes it on, and it's a giant, like we're talking a giant T-Rex like creature, in which he looks at it and thinks that this is also another thing that's never really shown up, and he wonders, isn't these things supposed to be extinct, like for the most part? In which he doesn't really know 100%, but he begins to actually beat the creature and actually defeat the creature for the most part. And it's a pretty easy dungeon, like a very basic one, and it seems as if it's really no problem for him to finish it. But as he's about to leave, he sees that there's one more door, and it seems as if the boss that he thought was the final boss actually was just kind of a warm-up semi-boss. And it seems as if there's one more behind those doors, and he wonders what can even be behind those doors. Like, seriously, like what is even this all about? And as he comes over and as he walks through those doors, there's a message that pops up and says that this is optional, that he doesn't have to go through it, but he decides that he wants to, because he wants to learn more about what this truly is, what this power, or what was happening currently in his whole power system. And as he enters through that room, he sees a person. No, a creature. No, it's not. He's not sure. But as he turns around, he has this very interesting clothing on, and on top of that has green skin. And he tells, well, Sung Jin Woo to bow down to the king, to King Piccolo. In which Sung Jin Woo would be in complete shock when he sees this. He doesn't know what this thing is, what's a Piccolo, he doesn't know how he's a king, but sure, he'll have to fight him and take him down. In which the fight is extensively more difficult than any fight that he's ever had. This guy has very high level martial arts and obviously has power beyond belief. But as he fights, and as he continues to fight with him, it seems as if he's getting more comfortable with the strength that he has, and getting more comfortable to the degree that he's going to be able to defeat this weird looking creature. And that's exactly what he does. He would, with one foul long punch, with all the power behind it, he would go spiraling through the chest. Yes, the chest of the Demon King Piccolo, or the dungeon boss known as King Piccolo, ending him in one foul swoop. And he would get a ton of levels, but also kind of something else that basically deems him as the Demon Slayer. Now, he's not sure what this is all about, but it seems as if he even has some extra things, extra points, and even has gotten kind of more advanced ki blasts, giving him the ability to shoot ki straight out of his mouth, but also giving him the ability to basically have even more control over his ki. He's not sure what that was all about. He's not sure who this Demon King Piccolo even is, but it must have some connection to whatever this godly power that was given to him. And of course, Sung Jin Woo has no idea that this leveling system wasn't supposed to be the way it is. The way it was initially, it has nothing to do with God Ki at all. But given that he was the one that was gifted through basically the gods himself, it has basically reawakened God Ki within the system, and has forwarded the dungeons and other things a lot differently, and has basically connected him to a universe that he knows absolutely nothing about. But with that said, he would then exit the dungeon, and he would actually hear some ruckus going on, and outside the kind of dungeon that he had, there was actually a dungeon break where there's a golem out in the actual real world. And just to help them out, he would quickly send a absolute crazy beam of light, what seems to be a beam of light but is a giant ki blast, toward the golem, evaporating him almost entirely, and he would just fly away before anybody could even realize. He would be helping out Jo Hee, who obviously is having some troubles and having some very, very difficult troubles with PTSD with what happened initially. She's obviously terrified and dealing with it very, very badly, and the fact is she still has to be part of these things to help others and also make money. So she's having a really difficult time, And Sung Jin Woo, of course, he continues on trying to basically make money and do stuff like that, and eventually he finds himself to have a pretty damn good deal. He joins this C rank hunter, Hwang Dong-suk, and he believes that, whoa, like, this is gonna be crazy, I'm gonna get a bunch of money, I just can't have any of the drops, but I'm gonna have a good amount of money from this. And it's basically just to fill up this group, because they are going into a C rank insect dungeon with basically the contract is stipulating that Sung Jin Woo doesn't have to fight. He just won't get any battle drops and stuff like that, like I said. So him and also a first-timer D-rank Yo Jin Ho would actually join them, and he obviously is completely tricked out in some crazy armor because of his absolute massive wealthy family. And it seems like everything's going alright. But Sung Jin Woo, when he would enter the dungeon, he would get a bit uneasy. He would feel this kind of odd sensation, and it would make him uneasy dealing with these other people. Now, initially he would think maybe he's just overthinking things, but after they defeat all the monsters and head in to basically take on the final boss, it seems like the hunters that invited them here actually and basically are going to sacrifice them and have them die to this sleeping spider. In which, this is horrible, because Dong-suk would basically trap Jin Ho and Sung Jin Woo in the boss room, waking up the spider in the process, and Sung Jin Woo would have to take on this giant spider. But as basically this spider is trying to attack them, all that Dong-suk's team can really hear is just the ruckus. The booms, the bangs, the explosions, whatever. And they're thinking, whoa, this spider must have been stronger than we all thought. But soon they'd realize it wasn't the spider, because Sung Jin Woo would begin to blast the spider using any creative ki blast he can possibly use, and would just absolutely obliterate it. And all that was left is an aura of this kind of reddish kind of aura that would be left, or this red kind of yellow aura that would be left from the residue of the ki blast. And of course, Jin Ho would be completely shocked by this, thinking that this guy must be some sort of kind of crazed lunatic who is some fake ranker, or kind of like this person that's faking his rank so that he can come and do whatever he wants, and nobody will know about what he's doing. But that's not the case. Sung Jin Woo has just gotten drastically stronger from the system and the awakening and the full awakening of his god ki. But it seems as if when Dong-suk's group would come come to see what happened and see if they died, well, they weren't dead. And of course, they would offer Jinho basically a way to kill Sung Jin Woo. Say, oh, kill him and everything will be fine. But of course, this is not what's going to happen. Sung Jin Woo would receive a new quest telling him to kill the group, and if he doesn't, then he will die. And this leads to a massacre lit up in flames, because he would wipe them out with one slash of his hand. As he moves his hand, a giant wave of ki would roam over it, and it would just incinerate them all. With the power of obviously himself with God Ki, and on top of that with the system, he has entered a realm of fighting that he never thought he would enter. He would leave those hunters completely gone and obliterated, and well, when they would exit, let's just say they would basically tell the people that are investigating, and tell the people that were, you know, asking about, hey, like, what happened, blah blah blah. They would basically say like, well, the boss actually killed them and ate them and stuff like that. And of course, Jinho would completely have Sung Jin Woo's back, and to the point where Jinho actually asks Sung Jin Woo to basically help him continue his journey throughout different dungeons and stuff like that. And of course, Sung Jin Woo's kind of like, I'm not sure about that, and he decides to reject the offer initially. But as he's training, as he's getting stronger, and as he's getting ready, it seems as if he begins to actually work harder with the daily quest. And he maxes out the daily quest in one sitting, and he's rewarded with another key. But this key isn't your normal dungeon, it is your S rank dungeon. A dungeon that would open up a completely different can of worms, a dungeon that would make him question exactly what this was all about. Because Sung Jin Woo, well, he would approach this dungeon, and at the very front of it, there would be something waiting for him. Something for him to actually take down, and something for him to defeat. But this was not your normal thing, not your normal kind of boss. This was a creature that was completely coherent. This was a creature that seemed to know exactly what was happening, but also knew basically who Sung Jin Woo was, and basically would call him out. The creature would have two horns on his head, and the creature would have white and purple, kind of these purple patches on his body. And he would tell him that he is Lord Frieza, and that if he wants to enter this dungeon, that he's going to have to bow down to the Emperor of the universe. But that is where we're going to leave off this part of What If Sung Jin Woo Had God Ki. And yeah, I know this is a little bit different, obviously. I thought this would be a fun way to do kind of Sung Jin Woo with God Ki. I thought, you know, this would be a cool little way of approaching it. And if you guys have any suggestions for who I should swap out, the normal person, I won't say much about the normal person that is in that dungeon, and also the people that are in there. If you want me to swap those things out, if you want any other Dragon Ball like characters, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball 2, whatever, in that dungeon, please let me know. I thought this would be a fun way of being a little bit more creative and doing something a little bit more fun with a, let's be honest, a story that is already overpowered, right? Sung Jin Woo is already overpowered, so you kind of have fun with it in a story format like this. But with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.